Hello and welcome aboard the Cringe Bus. Today we have something very special and informative to show you, so keep your bleach on hand and in case of emergency, give up. Now you know that there are a lot of keyboard warriors on the internet and a lot of them are this. Basically this. You see a post for a couple seconds and then it's gone and you've moved on with your life. Maybe you see a white knight or a nice guy in the comments and then you move on with your life. But where do they go after that? And more importantly, why? What goes on there? If you're curious about these things or are already bracing yourself because of the words that I put up on the screen, this is the video for you. Except maybe not bronies, I think they need an entire video on their own. Now let's descend into the first layer of hell. Going over to the Insel subreddit, we can see a handy-dandy post about what we're about to see and why. We're also going to lose all hope in humanity. So incels are involuntary celibate. So people who for some reason or another cannot find someone to be in a relationship with, or can't have sex, or just aren't in any way attractive by society standards, as they put it. Now, this is not something that automatically means that they're complaining about sex and why they don't have it. Even though some of them do and some of them are entitled, it is weirdly enough mostly just people saying mean things about themselves. It's actually very depressing over there. And not in the way that you would think. There are obviously some people in this category who blame society for what they do in a kind of fat acceptance sort of way, but a lot of them just say that they're horrible looking people who will never get anything and they just need a place to vent. Which honestly, I guess I can't blame them. And since most of them are older, about 30s and 40s, they talk about how they're in their 30s and 40s and still haven't had one relationship. Now let me make this clear, I am no supermodel myself, and I'm not about to say bad things about someone just because they might not look nice to me. So I'm just making it clear that I'm pretty much talking about the actions and the posts of all these people, and I'm leaving out anything about appearances and selfies or anything else that's going on there because that doesn't really matter unless it's just really bad. So reading the full FAQ takes quite a while, but it summarizes the most common arguments and counter-arguments in this group. They say this is more about venting here, and it's not about making it a part of their identity. Now for some of this, it is true, but for some of them you see a lot of posts where people talk about how, well, triggered they are when they're just trying to see a woman across the street. Or if a woman says hi to them when they go up to the post office or something, and they just get flabbergasted by it. Secondly, they just talk about standards and how it's not easy for them to just get a haircut and all of that. It's actually pretty sad because they've gotten themselves into the mindset that they should not even bother trying to change. A lot of them have become extremely bitter, and it is definitely true that if some of them just went out more and got a haircut and took care of themselves, it would be fine, they would be normal. It can be a lot of work, but you just have to do it. This is coming from someone with anxiety, I know how you feel. But it is not a good thing to just cry about it like this. There's a certain point where you have to determine whether you want to be a victim and pity yourself or if you actually want to have a good life. A lot of the veterans of this subreddit clearly picked the first option. They talk about their terms, which we'll go over in a second, and also some stuff about how going to therapy about this is not exactly an easy thing to do. Honestly, I guess it would be. I mean, I've never really had to say that to a therapist, so I imagine it would be quite awkward. But for some of them, I think it's more about the depression that they're dealing with and the unhealthy mindset that they're dealing with rather than the fact that they have this issue. That's the thing that they should talk to a therapist about. I think that if they got rid of that mindset, a lot of the time a lot of the other stuff would kind of just come hand in hand with it. So finishing up this section of the FAQ, here are the last things. Women technically can be incels because the term itself is not gendered, however half the people on the subreddit are saying that they can't be. I think there is a woman incel subreddit kind of thing and I can't really find it, but I'm pretty sure it exists. If someone sends it to me, I'll make a female version of this Neckbeard Cringe video if you want. Because although people don't really like to point this out, there are a lot of female versions of this as well. I think it's just more obvious to point out the male ones because I think it's a lot more obvious to see. But with females, they kind of disguise it with something else, or maybe they're just really good at trying to vent it in another way that isn't really that obvious, so... Also, according to them, they don't hate women. If you're not new to this channel, you know I pretty much very much dislike people who are quick to call misogyny and pretend that misandry does not exist. But there is something to be said here. While they don't hate women, a lot of them are very bitter towards women, and everyone there refers to them as females or FHO, which I'll go over in a second. And it's just really awkward and weird. That doesn't mean that they hate women or that they think women owe them something, it's just they've kind of gotten this mean girl kind of mentality towards them. And that attitude is definitely not helping them, and for some of them who do genuinely hate women, they're definitely not helping the other ones in the subreddit who are just confused and trying to find their own way, I guess. And they don't think that society should force relationships for them either. It's genuinely something where they think it's them that's at fault here. And there is a very specific certain sect of this that thinks that it's other people's fault, but I'll get to that in a second. Also, they don't have standards. None of them. If you are someone who is so desperate for sex that you will fuck anyone, they will happily oblige no matter what you look like. You could look like if Ann Coulter and an orc fucked and had a satanic love child and they would fuck you. Finally, this is more of an op-ed, but it's just weird to see that a lot of them don't like to share their incel space with female incels, yet a lot of the problems would be solved if they did. You have females and males that would basically fuck anyone who would say yes to them, have no standards whatsoever, and then you put them together. Problem solved. This makes me think that they pretend that they don't have standards, but they actually do, otherwise you could try and solve this with incel women. I'll get to this in more detail when we go into the terminology properly later, but there's a thing called looks match. Looks match is one word. It's someone who has the same level of attractiveness as you, so if you're a 3, then they're a 3 as well. But I've also seen it being used as a kind of qualifier for someone who kind of gets you, like someone who has the same problem or interest as you on a very fundamental and core level. Female incels and male incels are pretty much looks match, to use their own terminology, so this would kind of make sense if they got together. So first up on the terminology we have a Chad, who is someone very attractive but thought of as very dumb, kind of like a bimbo or just a douchebag. Kind of like the jock, I guess. They don't like Chads, and some of them hate them, but some of them say that they don't hate them. They don't like them because of the sexual success of Chads, and every now and then there is some white knight who plays nice guy and says that Chad should not treat women that way, even though they'll often call someone a Chad just by looking at his face, and not actually knowing anything about his personality, so the Chad might be actually really nice to the girl he's with, but... And then we have Normie, who everyone knows what that is, but in this specific context, it just means average guy every day. He's not exactly a supermodel, but he's just a normal dude. He's not a Chad or an incel, he's just a normal guy. That's what it means. And now some acronyms. We have LDAR, which means lay down and rot. SMV, sexual market value, which is actually kind of creepy. It's basically referring to the order of preferences of women in a kind of hierarchy, and this changes in whatever current cultural climate it is. So it'll probably have something like sexual market value. First one is a Chad, the second one is blah 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 blah, and then the bottom. So we have KHHV, which is kissless, hugless, hand-holdingless virgin. We have Volcel, which is you are the one who is choosing to not have sex, it's voluntary. Manlet is short guy. Looks match, which I explained earlier, who has the same level of attractiveness as you. Blank cell, so if you are bald and that's the reason why you're an incel, then you're a bald cell. If you have a really skinny frame and that's the reason why, then you're a frame cell, that sort of thing. DeWalt, not all women are like that. And FHO, female hominoid organism. We call them women. And now the fun bit. Let's look at some posts. So if you've gouged your eyes out, put them back in, because we're not done yet. Let's move on to nice guys. So nice guys are something that we all already know, and neckbeards as well, but I kind of just wanted to broadly talk about that general term before we get to the really insane people. So nice guys are basically those guys who think that just because they're being what they call chivalrous or kind, that automatically means that they'll get sex. And obviously there's women like that as well. They think that being a nice person will mean people will fall in love with them, and when that doesn't happen, they kind of spurg out and show their true colors. Since there's not much to say on this broad subject, let's just play some cringy posts. Okay, so this is the crazy. This is a group called TFL, and they are the craziest and smallest, very, very tiny group, but still crazy, out of all of these. Basically what we've seen so far is that these people are bitter and fully embrace hating themselves. If I said the words self-reflection, a bunch of these guys would look up and be like, what does that mean? It's that bad. You know how some people have such boring lives that they start thinking that the government thinks that they're super special and sends people to stalk them? The gang stalking thing? It's kind of like that. TFL stands for True Force Loneliness, which is the government or something, some sort of authority figure that's close to them, is forcing them into being lonely by tampering with them in some way. So it's kind of like, I'm putting stuff in your water supply or something to make you ugly because I'm the government and I don't need a reason, and I'm going to watch you being lonely and creepy for the rest of your life. It is I, the government. It is the reason that you cannot get laid. It is the reason and nothing to do with you being a douche canoe. Now I can't find much about them because, as I said, the majority of people who found them think they're idiots and they're really small and kind of obscure. So I've put up some posts and you can look at them while I'm talking. Also, if I find some things, I'll put it in the description for you, because it's one of those things where you just need to see it for yourself without any of my commentary to really get the effect of what's going on here. So yeah, and I'd say all neckbeards are cancer, but then again I'm a Drunken Peasants fan, so... And I hope you enjoyed the weird departure from what we usually talk about here, but there you go. If you have a weird topic, talk to me about it in the comment section or follow me on Twitter and tweet at me. If you enjoyed this, then get some muscle over here and Melissa click that like button. And I guess you can stick around if you want. Thank you to my amazing patrons for just being amazing. Here they are. Toodles!